If you are planning baby in Switzerland or you're already expecting and looking for practical information about pregnancy and giving birth in Switzerland, you are in the right place. Hello and welcome to this video. This is the fourth part of my personal practical guide on pregnancy and giving birth in Switzerland. If you haven't watched the other 3 videos about pregnancy, what you have to get before your baby is born, giving birth in Switzerland, please make sure you check them out. I will link them in the description. There you can find lots of practical information about pregnancy, health insurance, considering your job, rights of pregnant women, etc. So make sure that you check all of them. And this video is about postpartum period. What's going on during your first days at the hospital, first weeks at home, midwife visits and OB visits. I will also talk about unexpected insurance coverage that I discovered by chance that saved me around 500 francs. This will also help you not to waste money in buying some stuff in advance that can be covered by health insurance. So stick around and you will know what you shouldn't buy before your baby is born. So let's start with the first few days in the hospital. You will stay in your delivery room or in giving birth room for a few hours after your baby is born. During that time, midwives and doctors will check on your baby and on you, and also you will stay with your baby skin to skin to start bonding and forming their immunity. After these few hours, you will be transferred to the post-delivery room. And depending on the hospital and your insurance, this will be either a private room or I think max double room. So you might share this room with another woman. I stayed in the hotel, not in the room, because there's an option in our hospital if the pregnancy and delivery was natural and with no complications, you have an option to be transferred to the hotel room. And I talked again about this in my very first video. For natural birth with no complications, expect to spend 3 to 4 days in the hospital. I think with the second child it can be shorter because you might need to go back to your kids. During those days, at least in my hospital, baby is always with you. I also heard that in some other hospitals, during the night, nurses can take care of babies, but I don't think it's very common practice. Let me know in the comments below if you know. And you can also check this information on the website of the hospital. There's the afterbirth section where they describe whether you will be with your baby all the time or whether they will take care of your baby during night. In the hospital where I delivered, midwife only for the very first visit, she came to our room and all the other visits were on site. We had 2 visits per day in the morning and in the evening. If during the day you need any help from them or any advice, they were always there. They did some routine checkups, and if something was not within the norms, they did extra checkups. They also did checkups on me to make sure that everything is healing well. Every midwife was really attentive and thoughtful and supportive, and I found this very, very helpful, especially during these first days when your life changed completely. They can also check if the baby takes breast normally, if breastfeeding is starting normally, and when I had any questions, they were happy to help. Usually the stay in the hospital is 3 to 4 days, normally 3, but we stayed for 4 days because my son didn't gain enough weight and we were waiting for him to gain extra 10-20 grams so that we can safely go back home. During those 4 days, my son had 1 visit with the pediatrician because otherwise all the conditions were good except for his weight and bilirubin, which was high. And also I had 1 visit with the neurologist because I mentioned to the midwife that I had different sensation in my leg. nothing crucial, but I could feel that sensing is a bit different from what it was before. And I didn't expect them to book any appointment, but they booked it for me, and doctor could check on me right away. So my message to you is, if you will have any complaints about your health, about anything, just communicate it to the staff. They will find a way to help you. Let's talk about the meal in the hospital. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner were provided. Also, depending where you stay in the hospital, or like me in the hotel, the cuisine will be different. For instance, in the hospital, it's more like hospital food, which is good but healthier than the option I had in the hotel, which was basically restaurant food. If your partner stays with you, I'm not sure that food is included into the price. You can also check with the hospital. My husband paid a small fee for staying with me, like 35 francs or so, and that included his breakfast. Talking about visits, even if you are in the hospital, you can have guests. I'm not sure they can go to your room, but you can always have guests in the restaurant or coffee cafeteria. As I mentioned, staff was very thoughtful and attentive there. During our very last visit, where they checked on the baby that he is fine to go home, when they checked on me that I'm fine to go home, they also asked me whether I have a midwife. I was kind of convinced by my gynecologist that I don't need one even after my baby is born. But in the hospital, they suggested that it would be nice to have a midwife who will come to our place and will check on the baby, especially because my son was underweighted and also had high bilirubin. Anyway, we needed to have someone to take all the measurements and tests for bilirubin. I told them that I have no preferences except that it would be nice if a midwife speaks a bit of English. They could immediately find a midwife for me because they have this system, and I think they have all the availability. And I'm really happy that in the end we have that midwife. And here is again a piece of advice. If you can find a midwife before your baby is born, you can find one, and it's nice. But if you cannot find, don't be desperate. I'm sure that the hospital can help you. Now let's talk about heading back home. When you have a green light from your hospital that you're fine and your baby is fine and you both are good to go home, you can basically go home. And to go back home, you need a pram or a car seat, depending on how far you live and how you're planning to go back home. Nothing else. Your first days at home. After we came back home from the hospital with our newborn, we had a midwife visit scheduled for the next day. And the basic health insurance covers up to 16 visits during the first 8 weeks of baby's life. And 16 visits is for the first baby, for multiple birth, or for premature babies. In all the other cases, it's max 10 visits, but I'm sure it's even 10 visits would be enough. So in our case, when my son didn't gain enough weight and had high bilirubin, during the first few weeks, the midwife was coming every second day. Then she came probably every 5 days or so. I think in the end we had 12 visits, not all the 16 visits. On top of measuring baby, she was also helpful checking whether he's taking breast normally, whether he's really gets milk. For the first few days of his life, he had very orange skin due to high bilirubin. So the midwife also did multiple blood tests every visit. It was nice to have someone whom you can call on or send a picture or ask any question, and someone who comes to you regularly. Midwife can also prescribe stuff for you and for baby. And for me, that's where the interesting part comes. I didn't know, but if you have any problems with the breastfeeding, either you have not enough milk or you have too much milk, the midwife can prescribe you a pump. It was around 170 francs that are reimbursed if you are prescribed a pump. But I decided to buy a bit fancier pump, which was around 500 or so. And I sent my bill to the health insurance. And then when they sent me the confirmation that they will pay 170 francs something, they also mentioned that for the remaining part, I may contact my complementary health insurance. And then I sent the stuff to my complementary health insurance, and I was reimbursed like 90% of the remaining part. So in the end, I think I paid like 5 to 10 francs for my breast pump. So this is another message to you. Don't buy a breast pump before the baby is born. Because if it's prescribed by your midwife, you can save a few hundreds of francs. And this is something that you should ask your midwife, because most likely they will not prescribe if you don't ask. And I didn't ask for prescription, I just asked whether breast pump can help me with the milk supply because I didn't have enough. And then she said, oh, actually I can prescribe you one. And in this case, you will be reimbursed by your basic health insurance. Also, health insurance covers up to 3 breastfeeding consultations, which you can do either with a midwife or with any other specialist. This can be either when you start breastfeeding, but also when you finish it. I think I already advertised a lot complementary health insurance, especially for pregnancy, but I really mean it. Online, I found a therapist who did postnatal massages, and I booked several sessions where she came to my place with her foldable massage table, and I had 1 hour of postnatal massage at home, which was covered by my insurance. I think I advertised the complementary health insurance a lot on this channel. And the final part for today will be the first pediatrician visit. If you have watched this video, you already know that you should find a pediatrician for your baby before your baby is born. But even if you don't find one, in the hospital, they will ask whether you have pediatrician or not. And if you don't have one, if you don't provide the name, they will assign you to one of the available pediatrician in their system. But pediatrician is very important if you want them to speak your preferred language, to live close by, because you will need to go there quite often. It's better to find a pediatrician like beforehand. But even if you don't find one, I think you will be assigned to one of the available pediatrician from the list in the hospital. I don't think they will let you leave the hospital before they know that you have your pediatrician visit booked. The very first visit with the pediatrician is at 1 month old. So basically when your baby is born, you should contact your pediatrician. If you already found one, you should contact your pediatrician to say that baby is born. Please make an appointment in 1 month. Then you will have your very first appointment with pediatrician. It's a very general one to meet each other, to get to know each other, you as a parent and doctor, and nothing special. I think the most important is to find pediatrician on time. That's it for this video. I think we covered quite a lot in this video. So let's recap. In the hospital, you will spend 3 to 4 days where you and your baby will be monitored by midwives twice a day, I believe. Then you go home, make sure you have a pram or car seat to go home. After you're at home, midwife will come, I think, next day, and you can have up to 16 visits if it's your first baby. All the other visits can be also covered if they are prescribed by a doctor. Then you have your very first appointment with the pediatrician, which takes place at 1 month old. Also, you will have your OB visit during those first 8 weeks after your baby is born. And you can make your maternity leave a bit more enjoyable if you add some treatment like massages or postpartum classes, which are also covered by your complementary health insurance. If we talk about health insurance, the entire stay in the hospital for you and for your baby are covered by your basic health insurance. If you want your partner to stay with you, this may be subject to additional cost. If you want a private room when you don't have a private hospital insurance, this is also subject to fee. All the meal also included, midwife visits at home, 3 breastfeeding sessions are also included. You don't have to take them during these 8 weeks after giving birth. They can be taken, I think, anytime. After birth, OB visit is also included into the health insurance. The breast pump, if it's prescribed by your midwife or doctor, is reimbursed by basic health insurance up to around 200, but if you buy a more expensive one, the remaining part can be reimbursed by your complementary health insurance. I think we're covered for this topic. I hope you find it very informative and helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you in the next one.